If you were to leave a message behind, like in a time capsule, and have the next generation open it 50 years from now, what would be the important things that you would want them to know?
So Betty and I, you and I went to the press release together with the group of the residents and staff, and then you discovered that we didn't know what the meaning of legacy meant.
I didn't know that, no, I had no clue.
So then when we came back and started working on the Mosaic together with the group, how did we connect?
Well, you asked me some question about my life, and I kept talking. I grew up during the war.
My husband coached a young fella's baseball team.
I was one of 9 children.
Family's dead, but I have friends.
Somebody would come to the house every night after dinner and pray with him and with us. As long as I had food ready to give them when they went out the door, they were pretty happy.
The Christmas goose, don't forget the Christmas goose and the dumplings.
And the dumplings.
My name is Sherry Forster, and I work with Art with a Heart. There's along with Sherry Gundry, and we all work as a team. We started off first with gathering the information, and that was coming in to visit the residents and asking them what legacy meant to them. And they were drawing pictures and using different forms of art media and just giving an idea what legacy meant to them. And from those, we took all those pictures and took what was most common to all the pictures, and we came up with 5 art pieces that describe legacy.
We had so many stories come out of that. Their memories of immigrating from other countries, their memories of childhood during wartime. There was a lot of stories shared around working in the garden with their families, working in the garden. I remember one lady talking about all of her sisters working in the garden together with her. One of the themes that came forward, so we decided to incorporate it in every picture, was trees.
Trees are very important. If you see in every mosaic there is a tree. And one lady was telling me about how she had a tree in her backyard, and it was a huge tree, and it had beautiful blossoms on it, and the birds used to come, and she drew she drew the picture of just the stump, and she told how sad it was when this tree had to be cut down, but still the birds come and lodged in it.
And we were talking about the family tree, family genealogy, family history, and the passing of seasons. So we tried to incorporate a tree from every season in all of the pieces. The next piece that we did was trying to encapsulate a lot of the immigration stories. People coming from Europe, people coming from different places where there was a lot of war-torn areas. I remember one gentleman in particular saying, you know, why do people have to fight? I've never understood. And I didn't have a childhood because of all the fighting going on. There was a couple of men that talked about climbing the mountains in Europe, and they didn't have chairlifts and things to get up to the mountains to ski down them. So they would have their skis on their back and their packs, and they would hike that whole mountain to get to the top. And it was actually all about work ethic, is what he wanted to share for the next generation. And then we also took like the Canadiana landscape and tried to make it kind of a Canadian piece, and life taking twists and turns and not always knowing what was going to be around the next corner, and it might not always be good. So the hills with the feet are all about the journey of life. The #1 theme that came forward out of everything was the table. The table was a huge concept, and the table was about families eating together, families having larger celebrations together at the table. We also incorporated music because there was a lot of family songs and things that they remembered throughout their lives, and there was a lot of residents that would make pies and they would make pierogies, so we often left with little pierogies made out of clay and things. There was a lot of residents that had pets and they wanted a place to have them in the picture, so we put them under the table. And there was the religious component up in the corner. And with the religious component, we wanted to keep it open to anybody's belief. So we put stained glass and the light there to represent people remembering going through different traditions and rituals through their churches or wherever it was that they attended. The recreation piece was all about the activities and the things that people engaged in over the course of their lives. We heard a lot of stories around women in the early 1900s starting baseball teams or being part of the early baseball leagues and really having to fight for their place. Camping and trips and canoeing and fishing and hockey and gathering with groups of people, and we couldn't incorporate the image of groups of people, but we put a fire in it because they had campfires and they had bonfires by the beach. Simple things that they did: quilting, knitting, sewing, picnics. So we had donations of tiles, and we also had donations of cups and personal china.
People didn't like when we cut up some of their plates. Some of the older ladies weren't very happy with us when we cut up their china cups, but some were donated from family members, and those members had passed, and they requested that we put them into the quilt, so that's been quite rewarding.
We wanted the volunteers to be part of the whole event, so we had them write words about legacy on stones, and the stones are all around the campfire and the tents and everything. So our final piece is at work here. That is this piece that we're underway with. So the fall tree on this one represents that. It also represents the changing of seasons. And for the seniors coming in here and into a new residence, I mean, it's the changing of seasons that pass, but it's also the changing of the seasons of their lives. And then there was staff that were really concerned about the medical side of family trees. So the genealogy and the DNA we incorporated into this to represent how important it is to have that information. There was a younger person who had received a pocket watch from another older member of his family, but it made us also think about the concept of the passing of time. I remember the day that the center part with the hands holding all of the faces was shared, and we kept trying to come up with an image, and it was talking about blood being thicker than water, and that when the family, sometimes all the members didn't get along and they were going through hardships and struggles as well as good times, that it was the love that held them together. It almost looks like wings when you see the image of the hands holding the family, and then it's being trailed off by hearts, and the hearts represents the love that is holding the family together. And then the final corner piece of it, down at the end that the ladies are working on, was the book and the scribe pen with the feather on the end of it. There was a number of people that said, you know, if I die, our stories are lost forever unless we have shared them with somebody. And I remember him being a little sad at the time because he said, my kids weren't interested in picking that up, but my grandson was. So in the process of doing this, people shared stories that even their kids hadn't heard, and they remembered which pieces were their pieces. So it's really important for them to continue to tell their stories.
My family's dead, but I have friends, and my cousin, she came over. That was a lovely project.
And it was the most wonderful experience you could ever have.
You know, I was sitting here the other day, and there was a family member at one end of the table, and at the other end of the table there was a family member with her daughter and her grandchildren. And we were all working together, and it was very rewarding to see that. And to think that this will be out in our garden area, and then when they come to visit, they'll be able to go out and enjoy it.